Good evening and welcome. I'm holding this amazing plate of different herbs, just taking in a bit of the fragrance as I was getting ready here for something very special. Tonight we're going to be turning the monotonic studio into a French bistro. I'm going to be making steak frites, of course a classic. I have this incredible hanger steak that we're going to fry up, do a butter based on it. It's going to be incredible. And we're going to serve it with an Entrecote sauce, which is kind of a wild sauce with all these different ingredients, all these herbs. We have anchovies, walnuts, lemon, shallot, an absolute abundance of butter. The amount of butter we're using tonight is insane. Paula Deen would be proud of us. But this is a very flavorful green sauce to pour over the steak frites. It's a very complicated sauce, so there is a lot to do. But I'm going to take you through that and also talk a little bit more about what this sauce is, because I did do a bit of research and wasn't entirely clear all of the details in some cases. So I'm going to talk a little bit about that. But it's basically a kind of specialty sauce from a particular set of restaurants. I imagine there are a variety of similar sauces out there, but we'll get into all of that. First though, I want to get our steak frites started, because we'll want to get those going ahead of time. Now, I put frites in quotes in the title of this video for a reason, and that these are not going to be your typical deep fried French fry or classic frite chip. I'm going to do an oven baked version. Of course, we love the deep fried version, but it's pretty difficult at home. It certainly can be done, but it takes tons of oil. You have to deal with the cleanup of that oil. It is manageable, but it's a lot of work. So I do this version as something simpler. We're going to parboil the potatoes, and then we'll cook them in the oven to crisp them up and get that kind of final fry action. Before I go too much farther though, let's make sure this steak is ready to go. I'm gonna get some salt on it so it can get happy getting ready to sear while we're working on the rest of our components. A nice coat of salt on there. This will well season. Just gonna press that in a bit so it adheres, and we're just gonna let that sit, let that bring the moisture to the surface, let the salt work its way into the meat, and then help us get a beautiful crust when we cook that. Let me get this out of my way and we'll get these potatoes ready to go. Alright, let's get back to these potatoes. I have a pot of salted water ready to go. I'm going to place these into that as I slice them up so we can avoid them discoloring in our process here. And we're just going to cut these up basically into chip size. I like my frites with the skin on. If you don't, of course, go ahead and peel them. Roughly 1/2 inch size. Nice thick fries here. And potato number 2. Same drill, of course. Just gonna slice this up. There we have our chips ready to go. So this pot is going to go on the stove. We're going to parboil these for about 10 minutes. And over here I'm going to prep some other stuff for our operation. We're going to want a garlic clove for these potatoes. Just pop the skins off here. I want basically whole cloves. Okay, it's a little sputtered. Okay. This guy's a little smaller than I wanted, so I'm going to add one more here. Turns out it's like multiple cloves, like hiding in a trench coat. There we go. A couple of these cloves we're going to use when we do the baste on the steak. Put in some thyme, some garlic, and give a wonderful flavor to that crust. And these we're going to toss in some oil. We're going to make a very lightly flavored oil that we'll toss the chips with when we put those in to bake. Okay? Alright, let's continue our sauce prep. So, we're going to need a bunch of ingredients, and two things are going to happen. Well, more than two, but we're kind of making two components we'll bring together. The sauce is essentially like a butter mayonnaise. It's wild. So we're gonna in a little bit make a mayonnaise base, an egg yolk, and we're gonna add to that our fat, which is going to be melted butter with shallots and lots of other ingredients. So we're basically gonna make butter with the shallots in it and combine that with all of our other ingredients, which we're gonna kind of pulse in a food processor to make kind of a dry paste. We'll combine all that together, and that becomes our oil base that we will work in to create that emulsion. So that all sounds kind of crazy. It is a bit complicated. We're just gonna go through it all. So I have my food processor over there. It doesn't really reach to where I'm filming. So, and we're gonna do that off screen since it's noisy anyway. So I'm going to load up this bowl with the ingredients for our sauce. And so kind of the main set of flavors of this strong blast of herbs. So right, we have tarragon, we have basil. These are so fragrant, it's spectacular. Some sage leaves, and then fresh parsley. We get our parsley in there. Then we just need a small number of sage leaves. About like that. And let's get some tarragon leaves in there. Get a mix of parsley and tarragon. And I'm led to believe the original recipe uses chervil instead of parsley, but parsley much easier to come by. Delicious. Let's grab a few basil leaves. Okay, just like that. Alright, so we have this great spread of herbs. We're gonna take 5 walnuts, place those in there. We take a lemon. We're going to use basically half. Gonna pop some of these seeds out. And to make this easier, carve the rind off. And we'll just process this bad boy up. A quick rinse of the knife there Don't like to leave lemon juice on the blade. It will damage it if it's left there. We need some nutmeg in there, as well as some capers. I wasn't kidding when I said this sauce is crazy. All kinds of stuff in it. All kinds of different kind of big, bold flavors. Like that. Have some anchovy fillets. A nice jolt of flavor from those. And we're going to need a bit of black pepper as well. Get some in there. Now this is ready to be processed. Like I said, we're going to pulse this up and do pretty fine, kind of dry paste. And then I want to get my shallot ready. We're going to lightly saute this in butter. And we'll add it back with this mixture. So we'll go ahead and finely dice our shallot here. Alright, we're basically ready with these pieces. So let's go ahead and get things moving with the potatoes, and we'll pulse up our herb mixture here and work on our sauce. Alright, so let's take a look at what ended up with here, and this smells ridiculous. All of those herbs do smell the anchovies, but they do kind of hide themselves in the sauce. You get kind of all that rich flavor, but it's not obviously fishy. We're also going to use some Worcestershire sauce, so extra flavoring elements, but you see we basically have this paste, and I'm going to add it to a blender cup, as once we have our butter and shallot mixture, we're going to combine that all in here and blend this up. There are definitely a number of steps to producing this recipe, generally referred to as Entrecote sauce. It's perhaps more formally known as Café de Paris Entrecote sauce. And as I tried to learn a little bit about it, the picture wasn't 100% clear. I think it got a bit social media popular. That can kind of distort some things. But generally, it is the specialty of a particular restaurant, or really a chain of restaurants. I think it's actually a couple related chains that basically do steak frites with this entrecote sauce. Now, I've seen people on the internet say they've had it all over France, so maybe there are similar variations. I've been to France, but I've never had this sauce, never been to any of these restaurants. I wasn't familiar with it until YouTube happened to recommend a video of it for me. And because it had so many crazy elements brought together, it made me want to try it. So I started digging in a little bit more. And so basically it seems like these restaurants serve beef with this sauce, and it's kind of their home restaurant specialty sauce. Because entrecote is actually the serving of beef that they are giving. So to just say entrecote sauce is sort of like saying beef sauce, to my somewhat limited knowledge. And hopefully some of you all will have more info. So in the end, based on what I was able to learn, what this really seems like is a signature sauce for steak frites from a particular set of restaurants. So in a way, like Arby's sauce or Big Mac sauce, something that is maybe has derivations across many places, but has a very specific affiliation to these restaurants. Now we know the French invented haute cuisine and fine dining, but it's really American chains like McDonald's and Arby's that have perfected it. But we should keep on with the sauce because we have a lot of pieces to do. That was my convoluted history of what I've been able to piece together, but essentially I think this is a signature sauce for those restaurants. But as I said, if you've had it at one of those places, share your experience. If I have the story wrong, do let me know. But it's a wonderful flavor bomb of a sauce, so let's keep going. Alright, because we're serving such a rich meal, I believe I am legally obligated to offer some sort of greens alongside that. And that, of course, is typical for this type of meal anyway. The restaurants that do the sauce usually offer some sort of green salad. So I just have some nice greens here, and I'm going to quickly make a simple dressing. I'm going to make it very sharp since there's so much richness and butter in that sauce. Not going to do a lot of oil into the dressing to really get that bright acidic tang to help cut through just a little bit. So let's start off with a little Dijon mustard. some nice red wine vinegar. A wee bit of pepper. And a tiny bit of salt. I realized I don't have a mini whisk, so I'm just going to use a fork. Get those blended together. Then we're just going to drizzle in a little bit of olive oil, continuing a theme here where we're going to be making emulsions for both the dressing and the sauce. I'll whisk those in so they bind together. Just a bit more. Gonna have a little taste. Yeah, pretty good. Has that kind of nice sharp edge to it. So I'm going to dress my greens with this, and we'll have a nice little salad to go alongside our steak frites with Entrecote sauce. Alright, let's keep moving here. Now we like to do a beverage for the chef here on the channel, and going to go with some red wine. Bogle Family Vineyards Petit Syrah. Over 6 generations of farming and 3 generations of winemaking, we remain family owned and operated and focused on sustainability. I believe this bottle was a gift. Don't drink a lot of wine personally. I'll admit I'm an American who likes to have whiskey with my steak, as you've seen, but since we're going so French bistro themed, I think it's only appropriate to go with nice red wine here. Let's pop this open. Just cutting through the foil on top with the knife and my corkscrew. Then we can pop that off to reveal our cork. Get that started in there. Very squeaky. Okay. Pops right out. Alright. Thanks to the magic of time lapse, I'll aerate this briefly, so we'll be ready to drink. Alright. Let's pour a bit of wine. wine connoisseur nor aficionado, so all I can tell you is, hey, that's pretty good. Alright, we can enjoy with our steak frites. Let's get back to cooking. Alright, so I have those potatoes on to boil. Get them up to a boil for about 10 minutes, then they'll be ready to go in the oven once we strain them off. Have the oven preheating to 450 degrees. And I'm also starting up another pot here. I'm going to add some olive oil. And we're just going to heat up this oil with some of those garlic cloves I prepared. And I'm going to toss in a sprig of rosemary, which some of the bistros I've been to, some rosemary in the oil they cook their frites with, and it can be very delicious. So let's add that. And our garlic cloves. And all we're doing is heating this up just a bit to help transfer some of those wonderful, flavorsome oils out of our herb and garlic. And give ourselves just that little extra pop of flavor in our oven frites. Very simple, nothing fancy. We don't have to cook that garlic or anything. We're just trying to absorb some of that flavor. I guess you could take it as far as you like. But just a simple, gentle heating. Alright, we've got some good heat action in the oil. I'm going to go ahead and turn that off. Take out my cloves of garlic and the rosemary, and I'll save this oil to toss our potatoes with. And definitely don't throw those cloves away. Throw them into pasta or something like that. Use those beautiful little garlics. And we'll just let our potatoes come up to the boil. Alright, our potatoes are bubbling away. A few more minutes left. I'm going to go ahead and start on the shallot. Get my skillet heating here, and this is where the butter we promised starts coming into play. I know you can often hear the dog and people comment on it. We do our best, but being pretty lenient with him. Don't remember how much I've said, but unfortunately he does have cancer and an aggressive form. So far he's responded quite well to his treatments, but we don't know how much time we have with him. So we're not being too harsh in terms of filming and keeping him out of the way. letting him do his thing, trying to give him the best life. Besides, I just like him wandering around, so if you hear the dog, that is why. But let's get started on these shells. Get my butter in the pan, a healthy portion, and we are just getting started. We'll go ahead and add our shallots. Beautiful. And we are just going to soften these up. Don't want to color them for this recipe. So when it comes to choosing a recipe, I really try to hone in on recipes that I feel like I can trust or suit my palate. As I've said, more than being a trained chef, someone who likes to cook and has developed sort of a sense for what I think I can trust or that I think is making something that's going to work well for me as well as my family. And that's going to be different for different folks. There's a number of recipes for this floating around, and the actual restaurant version is like a trade secret, not surprisingly. But I stumbled across Chef Elizabeth Haig, who I had never seen before, but in searching for entrecote sauce, I really liked her material and felt confident in her presentation of it, so that's definitely the source I'm leaning into the most here. Get a little more heat under those shallots. It was down a bit low. For the frites portion, I'm actually going with the basics of a Jamie Oliver version of oven frites. And that parboil. They are done. And so I'm going to strain those off and put them on a baking sheet to just dry a bit before we toss them with the oil. So let me do that now. Alright, and those shallots are now going snap, crackle, pop like we want. But now I'm turning that heat off because I don't want to take these any farther. And we're going to start adding in all of that butter. We're just going to melt that, and then we'll need to let things cool off a bit before we work them into those herbs. Okay, we've got our butter melted. Let's pull this off the heat, let it cool down some, get our potatoes ready, and we'll finish our sauce. Well, life is always an adventure, isn't it? Particularly here on the channel. You can probably tell from the texture of these that I boiled these a little longer than I wanted to. The outside's kind of breaking down more than I would have liked because we want to have these hold their integrity as chips. I was watching the clock and kind of yakking away rather than actually testing their consistency. So they kind of slow come up to temperature. They cooked longer in the water. Hey, it happens. It's definitely not going to stop these from being delicious, but it was just a little bit of a slip in terms of getting the consistency I wanted. Now all we're going to do is I have that beautiful oil that we made. And we're just going to toss these with that and pop them in the oven. Well, not as perfect as I would like, and I'll probably get fired later, but we're just doing our best, so let's get these into the oven. The goal now is really just get them kind of nice, golden, delicious color. Finish up that kind of fry, bake. Okay, let's do it. All right, frites in the oven, 20-25 minutes or so. Try to keep a closer eye this time. Have our herb base, and let's add our butter mixture. Okay, successfully done without a huge mess. Screwing our lid on, and I'm going to go blend this and be right back. Alrighty then. Have an amazing herbal butter sauce. Now, as I said, it's almost like a butter mayonnaise. It'll be an emulsion between that fat and our egg mix. So I'm gonna need an egg yolk. Alright, so egg yolk into the bowl. Then we need some Worcestershire sauce. And a splash of vinegar. And I'm just going to whisk these together. Now we need to incorporate our fat into this to form an emulsion, a bond between a liquid and fat. We're going to go very slowly like with the salad dressing, just work in a little bit to make sure it all binds together. The whisking can be pretty noisy, so I'll have this turned down. That all nicely bind together. My gosh, beautiful. It's nicely emulsified. So many aromas coming from this, all our different ingredients. So we worked hard to emulsify this so it doesn't split, have the oil and liquid separate. And now this sauce has an unusual step where we're going to take part of it out, heat that on the stove and make it split, and then reintroduce. So this is another one of the kind of mysterious aspects of this. It kind of makes sense that maybe you cook off some of the herbs, so it just dials that back a little bit. I've also seen people say so they can like heat up the sauce, they heat up part of it so they don't split the whole thing but can have it be warmed. I don't have a real answer for you on this one. I could believe both of those, but we're going to follow the directions. And I'm going to take part of this sauce and put it in my little saucepan. And we're just going to do a little heat on the stove to cook out that bit, and then we'll just reincorporate it into our larger sauce here. Okay? And then we're gonna cook that steak. It's gonna be amazing. Alright, so starting to heat up the cast iron because we're basically ready to do this steak, but real quickly, I've got my little saucepan of my portion of Entrecote sauce that I'm going to heat up. And we're just going to take it to where it separates out again. So it's going to cook those herbs a bit, round off some of those flavors, and then we'll just work it back into the rest of the sauce. So you can see how it's getting a bit grainy. That's where the fat and liquid are separating out. I don't have that smooth emulsion, so we're basically there. Just gonna cook this for a second and then we'll take it off the heat. All right, for the steak, we're going to do a sear first in the pan with some oil. I'm going to use canola oil. And after that initial sear, just to help develop that crust, we're going to put in the butter. And then we'll baste it to add that incredible butter flavor. I'm going to throw in a little garlic and some thyme, so we just get that extra little hint of flavor. Of course, we have a delicious, rich sauce that'll definitely be one of the dominant flavors. But if you get those little bits of steak, you just get that beautiful, classic kind of thyme and garlic, along with the butter on there. Really amazing. If you didn't have the sauce to go with it, that would still be utterly fantastic. And I'm doing hanger steak, which is a delicious cut of meat. It's actually the diaphragm muscle from the cow, as I learned recently. To start with, I'm just going to get a bit of the canola oil in the pan heating up so we can start our sear. I just wanted a thin coat because we're going to have that butter in there. I poured out a touch more than I wanted, so I'm just going to drain off a little bit. Want enough to help us sear that steak, but we have so much fat from the butter, we can limit how much oil we need. We want to get our pan nice and hot to help with that initial sear. Then we can turn it down as we add the butter, so we don't want to burn the butter during the basting process. This will probably be kind of a wild process. Might get some smoke, some noise, so I might not say too much as we're going along. But the process is very simple. That steak has had time to absorb that salt. The exterior is dried up to help with that crust formation, all that beautiful flavor. I am very excited about this. And of course, even though the sauce had an insane amount of butter, we're going with more butter for the baste here. Not sponsored by dairy farmers, but something to consider if you're a milk or butter producer. We're just about ready to go here. I am using cast iron because it helps really hold that heat, which will help you get that sear. Kind of heavy bottom pan will work pretty well for this. My other videos you may have seen the all-clad pan I use, but perfect for this sort of thing. Alright, we're kind of smoky hot, so let's make it happen. I am going to be flipping it. That helps us control the heat and the gradient. Putting a lot of heat into this steak, and we want to keep that inside medium rare. I want to avoid overdoing the edges. This is also an irregular shaped steak. I'm going to try to sear some of those sides if I can. All right, seeing some crust formation there. That is perfect. And to help us out, I do have a meat thermometer. No shame in using one. It helps you get this stuff right if you're less skilled. And we're going to go for medium rare here. 125, so probably pulling a little bit before that because we're going to rest the meat. All right, and let's get that butter in there. Okay, our steak is resting. I have those potatoes. You can see they've broke down a little bit, but that's okay. We're just gonna give these a nice season, and we'll grab some of these for our plate. See, get some nice golden brown color on there. It'll be delicious. Nice, beautiful pile of oven frites here. Get that hint of rosemary. So good. Let's set these aside so we can finish up. So we have the original entrecote sauce, and then this smaller portion that I split on the stove. So let's reincorporate. Definitely give me your thoughts on this step, because I admit I feel like I don't have a real answer for you, and it is kind of unusual, but maybe it's more common than I'm aware. So if you have more insight, please do share. Just gonna work that back in. Perfect. And then of course we have our steak here. It's kind of a long piece of meat. Considered having it for our cook, but this may be about a 3/4 pound slice. Open this up. Oh my goodness. Absolutely beautiful in there. We've got this nice butter basted crust. So juicy. We've got that nice medium rare. Let's get a few slices here. Grain kind of changes a little bit, and it kind of works against you on the shape of the meat. So I'm kind of trying to get a little angle, so we're not totally with the grain. Just get some beautiful slices here. My goodness. Cannot wait. Wow, okay. Beautiful, beautiful, beautiful. Alright, let's prepare a plate here of all of this amazing goodness. Alright, I have those nice, warm rosemary garlic frites. So good. Let's tuck a little this beautiful, beautiful hanger steak on there. Butter basted with the thyme and garlic. And have that green salad we whipped up. Now I'm just gonna go ahead and put some on the plate here. So we get that nice pop of color. Then of course we have to get some of this sauce on there. Oh my goodness. Gorgeous. And let us not forget our glass of red wine. And just, wow, I cannot wait to dig in. Let's give this a shot. We've already tried our frites. Let's dig in with some of our steak here. I mean, that is phenomenal. I mean, if I was just eating that steak, I would be so far beyond happy. I don't even know how to describe the sauce. It's herbal. I am getting more of the anchovies. I kind of just went for it. So there is more of a note of that here, but it's not prominent as being anchovy. It's just super flavorful. Of course, it's very rich. A little bit of our salad to cut through. And of course, frites go right in the sauce too. Oh my goodness, just phenomenally delicious. I guess with this French bistro style meal of steak frites with entrecote sauce and a green salad, bon appetit really is the right thing to say. Well, I hope you enjoy. I'm going to take a few minutes to just absolutely savor this. What a phenomenal meal. All right, have a good night, and I will see you next time around.